Welcome to How to Play Horus Heresy 3rd edition. This video will be looking at the basics of the move subphase. In this subphase, the active player moves their units across the battlefield. This subphase is part of the wider movement phase and follows the reserve subphase and comes before the rout subphase. In this subphase, the active player can move their eligible units into key locations on the battlefield. To move a unit, a player will use the unit's movement value, which is represented by the M value on the unit's profile. This value is the number of inches the unit can move across the table. To move a model, measure the distance from the front of the model's base and move the model so that point is the required number of inches in the desired direction up to but not over the movement value. When moving a unit, ensure that all the models within it remain within coherency of each other. If they cannot, then they immediately gain the suppressed status. You should always finish moving a unit completely before you move on to any other units. The order you can move your units in is entirely up to you. If a unit moves through cover, either difficult or dangerous, then subtract 2 inches from the unit's movement value. You cannot move your unit through impassable terrain. Anti-grav units can ignore terrain when moving, flying over and past it easily. They do not suffer any penalties for passing through dangerous terrain and can even pass over impassable terrain. However, they cannot begin or end their movement in impassable terrain, and if they begin or end their movement in dangerous terrain, then they must take a dangerous terrain test. Units can also rush, which sees the unit move faster to the detriment of shooting or assaulting. To rush, add the unit's initiative characteristic to their movement. A unit that has rushed normally cannot shoot or assault afterward, so be mindful of the units you choose to rush. The rush distance is also impacted by terrain. Vehicles cannot normally rush due to lacking an initiative characteristic. However, a vehicle that has the rapid subtype can add a further 6 inches to its movements for the purpose of rushing. If a rapid vehicle does choose to rush, then it cannot disembark any models it is carrying, and all of its shooting attacks will be made as snapshots. Infantry with the light subtype can add a further 2 to their initiative when they rush, making them incredibly manoeuvrable. They may also make shooting attacks afterwards, but as snapshots. Units with the heavy subtype can never rush. All movement will normally be in a straight line, but can be broken up into smaller parts so long as the overall movement doesn't go over the unit's movement characteristic. Units can move through friendly models and units, including vehicles. However, friendly models cannot be put on top of one another. Units cannot move through enemy models and units and must always end their movement at least 1 inches away from the enemy unit. Anti-grav units, however, can move over enemy units with no issue, so long as they end their movement at least 1 inch away from the enemy unit. Units also cannot pass through friendly units locked in combat, and should always leave a 1 inch distance between the units when ending movement. If a unit moves or rushes, then it counts as having moved. This will have impact on other special rules such as heavy. If a unit does not move or pivots on the spot, then they count as stationary, again making heavy weapons more effective. Units can also embark or disembark from vehicles in this subphase, which will be covered in a separate video. Note that if a unit's movement finishes within 12 inches of an enemy model, then the enemy may use a reaction to that movement. If the movement ends within 12 inches of multiple enemy units, then multiple enemy units can react to that single unit's movement. Finally, whilst most units will be able to move during the move subphase, there are specific situations in which they cannot. The situations are that a unit has just entered play from reserves in that turn, a unit has the pin status, a unit has the routed status, a unit is locked in combat with enemies, and a unit may not move if any model within it has a movement value of 0. And that's the basics of the move subphase. Thanks very much for watching.